This isn't any regular heat. This is nuclear heat. Live from the 93.7 The Ticket studios in the heart of Lincoln, America. Bringing you the latest from the Square Circle on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here is your host, Jake Bockoven.
Yes, it is time to talk some pro wrestling here on a Sunday night. Thanks for joining me, Jake Bockoven, here at the 93.7 The Ticket studios of a very refreshing, fun week of pro wrestling that is leading up to Saturday night main event next Saturday. So this next week should be even more fun as we don't know too much of that card. We know the championship matches, which they worked on this week, will be Cody Rhodes against Drew McIntyre and CM Punk against Jey Uso, but we don't know a whole lot more than that, and it's just 1 week away, so we'll get to kind of see how that card plays out. Reminder, Survivor Series, the next technical premium live event. Remember, these Saturday night main events are on NBC, Peacock, but Survivor Series, there is the next big-time premium live event. Still kind of wondering how that's going to turn out. You know, Survivor Series has kind of shifted away from the traditional best of each brand or battle of the brands to now war games. And so you've got to put these teams together. And it seemed like for the longest time, it was going to be CM Punk, Roman Reigns, those guys, you know, kind of a patch of good guys against the Vision. Here with the Seth Rollins injury lately, now it's kind of up for question. Are they going to still run that feud? Is the Vision, now having broken up with Seth Rollins, is that a big enough obstacle to overcome for CM Punk and Roman Reigns? Or who do they need? I mean, traditionally, you're going to have more members than just what they have there, because the Vision right now would just be a tag team matchup. So who would the Vision team with? There's been ideas out there. Brock Lesnar might make some sense. I think that'd be a lot of fun. People have their differing opinions. Augie certainly does. Not a big fan of Brock Lesnar these days. By the way, Augie, hopefully having fun out there. He's at a T-Pain concert here in Pinnacle Bank Arena in Lincoln, Nebraska. So he's having fun. So I'm going solo tonight. See if I can make it as a singles act here on our pro wrestling show here, Nuclear Heat. But it's going to be interesting to see what they throw together for Survivor Series. And certainly what they kind of throw together this week, I should say, in a way, for Saturday night's main event. But for the men's championship matches, they've certainly got me interested. And again, I think it's been a great week. It's, shows like this, often kind of the internet wrestling community likes to drag Triple H or whoever's booking through the mud, say should have done this, should have done that. And that's the fun of the show. So I'm not trying to say that that's not a bad route to go, and it's something we often do. But I just got to be honest. Again, I think there's a lot of fresh matchups. I think there's new storylines. I think the personalities are in some ways more interesting than they have been in a long time. Jey Uso, especially. So I just think wrestling has been really good. If you've stepped away from it, I don't blame you. Most of us do at some point in our lifetime. It's a good time to come on back if you want to, especially if you're a John Cena fan, by the way. John Cena's final match, not too far from here, December 13th. Is when that one will be coming, but still don't know the opponent for that either. So as usual in wrestling, we've got a lot to figure out. And of course, we've got a lot of things that maybe you did have figured out, that WWE did have planned out. That is no longer the case. Certainly the Seth Rollins injury that I talked about earlier would fall into that category. Another injury happening this past week, and I'm not sure how long she'll be out, but Rhea Ripley actually broke her nose in a match in Japan. So, of course, Rhea and Io Sky had kind of been partnering up primarily to take on the Kabuki Warriors. Didn't seem like that feud was all the way done. Now with this injury, it at least looked like they're kind of focusing the Kabuki Warriors on their next goal of tag team gold, but we'll never be surprised to see Rhea Ripley or Io come out and stop that in its tracks. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't know how long you'll be out with a broken nose. That is one thing that WWE is fighting against a little bit now, is the injuries. Rhea and Seth I already talked about. Roman Reigns has been written off. I don't know how long he's going to be out. Jacob Fatu also written off due to a real life injury. We'll have to see. They're going to need to get their top stars going or start to build some stars, which is what they've been attempting to do, especially here in this past week. So it's been exciting, and we'll jump right into it. We usually talk about the previous week's WWE Raw and Friday Night SmackDown, and we will do that now. We'll start with Monday Night Raw, though SmackDown was the most previous show. If you'll battle, I'm battling a little bit here with my computer, so never mind me if it sounds like I'm a little misguided or not completely paying attention here as I'm trying to find something, but I guess I'll get to it to the next break. In any case, let's just start off WWE Raw. So Raw General Manager opened up Raw this past week. Adam Pearce came out to announce the update on the Seth Rollins injury. Of course, Braun Breaker had taken the gold belt away from Rollins as they, in storyline, of course, had an attack, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed breaking up the Vision. Paul Heyman, it was interesting because Paul Heyman, the last time we had seen him, didn't seem to have much of a choice. He was just kind of leaning in toward Breaker and Reed, and because they were the ones that were the strong ones in inside the squared circle at that point in time. Seems like he is fully on the Breaker and Bronson Reed side, as we've seen. But you never know with Paul Heyman. Seth shows back up, he might have a different story. But in any case, Adam Pearce was announcing that he's removing the World Heavyweight Championship from Seth Rollins, and that there would be a battle royal at the end of the evening to determine who would face CM Punk for the gold at Saturday night's main event that we're talking about coming up November 1st. So easy way to get me excited, and maybe why I'm so so happy and complimentary of the booking this week, a battle royal. I love battle royals. I know some people think it's a lazy way to book it, to get your kind of number one contender. I suppose CM Punk was the number one contender. He had already earned that. But again, now to go on to face CM Punk for the championship, I just love battle royals. It's a lot of fun, and there are a lot of stories that they can go. Now, they don't always do them right, but I think by the end of the night, I think they had a pretty good one that advanced some stories here. So that was going to be the main event. Of course, Braun Breaker not so quick to hand over the belt. He demanded that Adam Pearce say please to get the world title. Pearce did end up getting the belt, and then Paul Heyman took over the mic. Had some nicknames and some bad things to say about Seth Rollins, including calling him a bum shoulder B word. So doesn't seem to be, if Paul Heyman does eventually team back up with Seth Rollins, it does not appear they're at least setting it the opposite direction. So we'll kind of see how that goes. Of course, later in the evening, he would have an interaction with Becky Lynch as well. So interesting things. Paul Heyman just is fascinating. If you I mean, I don't know how you don't love the guy. He's obviously from his ECW days, but a guy that obviously doesn't have a whole lot of skills as far as in-ring ability, but you could just write storyline after storyline after storyline around him, and they have done for years and years. So, I mean, just fantastic at bringing that to the table is Paul Heyman. Now, I did see some people not so happy with the way that they did this. Braun Breaker, is an up-and-comer. People liked the idea of the belt on him, and they didn't even, I mean, it was later shown in the night, and we'll get to it later, that Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed couldn't even be in the battle royal. They at first were supposed to be in this battle royal, and then at some point were taken out of it by Adam Pearce. And so I would ultimately agree. I mean, of all the things that I did like about the show, I was kind of hoping for maybe a little bit more of a better answer on why Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed decided to turn on Seth Rollins. Was he going to try to kind of keep the belt? I mean, we've seen guys in wrestling steal the belt before and not give it back. That was certainly a question all week. And he just kind of handed it over. It was fun enough way to talk down to Adam Pearce, but not something that really advances his character. So we'll have to see what they do next with them. Again, and I do think it was it did take a little bit out of the battle royal, as much as, again, I already talked about how much I liked it. If Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed were in it, would have been a lot better. I mean, just very fascinating to see how that would have came out. The stakes would have felt a little bit higher. But they clearly, I would at least think, have a plan at some point with this. But sometimes you give them too much credit. Maybe they don't, because again, I was looking for a little bit more on the answer why they decided to go away from Seth Rollins. We know real life storyline, Seth Rollins' real life injury is what caused the split. But you just like something a little bit more in character here to build these guys, as they are the guys that they I would say up and comers, but they're literally the guys that they've been building the booking around, and giving big wins over the last several weeks, months, ever since they put the vision together. So I'm sure they've got a plan for them. Maybe this is just kind of dancing around that to a degree, and didn't want them to have to take a loss, or because they had been building up in this battle royal. Let's get to the World Tag Team Championships. These were defended on WWE Raw. There were plenty of championship belts defended on Raw. This one was because Dirty Dom couldn't keep his mouth shut. He was talking about how he is a fighting champion last week, and AJ Styles and Adam Pearce were able to use those words against him and say, yeah, let's see the Judgment Day, Finn Balor and JD McDonough, defend their titles against myself, AJ Styles was saying, and Dragon Lee. This was a great opening match as far as action goes. As you can imagine, all these guys very good at what they do. Of course, AJ Styles and Finn Balor are always the Bullet Club connection, so it's great to see them in the ring. As this kind of played out here, Dragon Lee, who is going to be battling against Dirty Dom for his AAA title, was wiped out by McDonough at ringside, but this allowed Styles to deliver the Styles Clash and beat Finn Balor and ultimately take the gold there. Of course, Balor, part of this, the fun of this was Balor attempted a Styles Clash of his own that AJ was able to turn around. So a little bit of maybe a nod to AJ Styles and thanking him for taking the loss to John Cena on his way out. AJ Styles announced this is kind of his last run this next year. He's looking to retire soon too. So now they've got something for him and Dragon Lee to do. I don't mind it. I do wish they would have done more with the Judgment Day. I mean, it's easy, cheap heat to get on the Judgment Day to say, hey, they weren't defending their titles and they could just go around with their belts. But obviously, again, with Dom costing them the belts, at least in their mind and in storyline, should be interesting, as it always is, the never-ending soap opera of the Judgment Day, and to see what goes on next there. But kind of fresh, and I don't see AJ Styles and Dragon Lee as a type of tag team that's not going to defend the title. So I think we'll see that pretty quickly. Now, it is interesting too, both single stars. I mean, I don't see a long-term tag team between the two, right? Like I said, AJ Styles, not necessarily going to be. That's just not how he's going to finish his final year in WWE. So we'll see what they do with this, how long they keep it, but at least kind of fresh. And again, I think that's part of a good thing for WWE Raw. And I'm going, I guess, I mean, if you've listened to the show, you know how much I like Finn Balor and JD McDonough the whole Judgment Day. So again, I wish they would have done a little bit more with it, but this at least brings some freshness, some uniqueness, and some excitement to those world tag team titles that we will see, I'm sure, defended again more often than we had previously. Of course, Dirty Dom also defending his title on Monday Night Raw in an Intercontinental Championship match against Rusev. This would be the second time around. If you remember, last time Dirty Dom was able to use cheating tactics to beat Rusev. And this would happen again. So as you would imagine, Rusev is the big brooding brute. He goes ahead and used his strength throughout the match. You could tell he kind of had he was winning most of the matches, how they're booking it. And so Dom was going to need to do something. He rolled outside the ring, grabbed both his IC and AAA titles, and was just going to leave. Penta showed up, prevented him from doing that. But Mysterio was able to use this distraction to cheat and grab the bell hammer again, which is what he used last time to defend his title. This time, Rusev figured that out, so he was not able to use it, but he did while they were getting the hammer out of the ring, distracting the ref. Dirty Dom used the low blow on Rusev and followed that up with the 619 and a frog splash to get the victory. Certainly looks like, at least at some point, I think you might have a triple threat match. The interesting thing about this, Rusev and Penta kind of developing a little bit of a rivalry throughout this as well. It's already been said tomorrow night on Monday Night Raw, we'll have a number one contenders match between Rusev and Penta. Again, we've seen both these guys go up against Dirty Dom for the Intercontinental Championship. So wouldn't necessarily be completely fresh as far as that goes. But I think all of it together is kind of exciting, and still, even though it's not the first time we see him, sometimes again you got to kind of let these feuds boil. Some feuds you'll set up for the ultimate match being, the kind of the go away in goal, I suppose, of that feud. And some of them you just let them battle it out. So I'll be interested to see what they do here. Either way, I think Dirty Dom is just holding that championship well. He does not have the U.S. title open, but he does. He basically is fighting fighting for it every week and still able to win. Remember, he won this thing at WrestleMania. I think the first contender was Penta the night following WrestleMania, the Raw after WrestleMania, and he was able to win that one, which kind of surprised me too. Since then, WWE has figured out what they have in Dirty Dom, which is a fun heel to cheer for. The crowd obviously gets their Dirty Dom chants going. It's kind of funny. He's been showing a bit of a surprise that he's not booed anytime. Remember, there was a time where he couldn't get on the mic. When I say there was a time, it lasted for like 2 years. Whenever he'd get on the mic, he would get booed out of the building. And so it is fun to see the crowd now embracing Dirty Dom and in some of his heel tactics, much like Eddie Guerrero, who he obviously has a history of, if you put it that way, but emulates a lot as well. And so I think that gets the crowd on his side. From the Men's Intercontinental Championship to the Women's Intercontinental Championship, we'll jump into that. Another feud that has seen a few matches already, but they're exciting. Maxine Dupree and Becky Lynch. This time, Maxine fighting in front of her home crowd of Sacramento. If you've kind of followed along with Maxine's career, not necessarily the best in the ring. I would say green to it, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. Becky Lynch is one of the best all time in the ring, so it's kind of interesting to see this go along. Now, Becky Lynch has been able to kind of hold Maxine up, I suppose, and these matches have been pretty good. And in fact, Dupree had momentum in this match quite a bit. She applied an ankle lock at one point. She was able to break out of the disarmor, which is very difficult to do. Lynch has played a lot of her opponents away that way. Ultimately frustrating Lynch. Remember, Lynch had already lost the match to Maxine Dupree because she was counted out. She was talking trash to the fans before. So this time she tried to just walk away with her title, but instead used it as a weapon, earning a disqualification. Remember, you can't lose a championship by being disqualified. So Maxine did not necessarily win that, but she did win the match, which means now Maxine Dupree has beat Becky Lynch twice. And certainly something they will use. I would not be surprised to see Maxine Dupree and Becky Lynch as one of the matches this Saturday at Saturday Night Main Event. So I think that's kind of where that's headed. Who knows? Maybe we'll see round 3 tomorrow night, though. I would expect again that they need to kind of set up a little bit more of a card for Saturday Night Main Event, but certainly could be something that we see figuring out tomorrow night. And again, I don't think this is, the ultimate goal. I don't think the Intercontinental Championship given to Maxine Dupree, although it would be a huge upset and be a lot of, for the night, a lot of fun. I don't know how much long-term that helps Maxine. She's trying to kind of get over without going over, right? Without winning ultimately this feud. Becky Lynch may be able to put her over as a legit title contender, or at least a legit wrestler on the roster, which again, to this point in her career, maybe had not been. So it's a perfect use of the Intercontinental Championship. At first, I was a little bit, skeptical. It was one of the all-time upsets to see Maxine Dupree beat Becky Lynch. But in both ways that they've done it, Becky Lynch has been a little bit protected. It's not like she's just beating her straight up. Wouldn't be surprised. Oftentimes they've just kind of done rollovers or roll throughs to get a cheap win, but they found different ways to do this. So I've appreciated it, and maybe that's where they go too. You could see another cheap win some way or the other for Maxine Dupree tomorrow night, and then the ultimate payoff coming at Saturday night's main event. Either way, I'm surprised. From the first time they pulled this match up to where we are now. I would have said that first time I was just thinking, do we need this? Because I thought it was going to be a one-off, just kind of a match where Becky Lynch takes care of Maxine pretty quickly. But I've enjoyed this. So this has been a little bit of fun, and I'm looking forward to more matches between the two. It's just, you have that true underdog story, that underdog feel for Maxine Dupree when she's going up against Becky, whose character is just so great at drawing heat right now. So that has been one of the highlights, I think, of Monday Night Raw over the last couple of weeks. Another highlight from WWE has been Stephanie McClure. She, of course, a women's champion, but she was in a non-title match this week against Roxanne Perez of the Judgment Day. La Primera was able to avoid too much interference, overcome interference, if you will, from Raquel Rodriguez, throwing a little devil's kiss and then down to Perez and scored the win. But it was really interesting after the match. Judgment Day pounces, as you would expect, but Nikki Bella makes the save. So I'm sure this week, I would not be surprised if we see a tag match with Stephanie McCure and Nikki Bella against Judgment Day. The question is, how long is this going to last? This is kind of that friendship they're putting together to break up, right? And at some point, I'm sure we'll see Nikki Bella against Stephanie McCure. I think, again, you've got a little bit of time to work with to build the friendship. That way, the turn is a little bit surprising. So I think we'll see that tag match probably tomorrow night. At this point, like I was saying earlier, this was the kind of the backstage segment between Adam Pearce and Paul Heyman, where he removed Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed from the Battle Royal main event. Once again, I just don't like that decision. It was part of the story is what we're looking forward to by the end of the night. It was interesting, though, as I brought up Brock Lesnar earlier. Part of the reason I did is because from there, Paul Heyman was talking to the Vision, to Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, and kind of going through over his past about, surely they were frustrated about not being able to fight to get in that championship match. And he kind of talked about how he led, the likes of Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar and CM Punk, and just to kind of trust him there. So we'll see. I mean, I hopefully that pays off into something as well. Wouldn't be surprised to see either of those or both those guys get involved in the matchup at Saturday night's main event. But again, there's a whole week ahead of us, so we'll see what they've got going on that side. Also backstage, that's where Becky Lynch did confront Paul Heyman as well. And so it's interesting. It does not seem like Paul Heyman is working sides here. It seems like he has taken the opposite side of Seth Rollins. So that will be interesting when he returns as well, to see if there's any payoff for that. Though, when Paul Heyman broke up and turned on, I should say, CM Punk and Roman Reigns in the past, I don't know if you ever get the payoff. Maybe you don't. Maybe, Paul Heyman's limitations in the ring, right, is why you don't get the ultimate payoff. We saw Solo Sikoa slam him through a table at one point, but for the most part, that was the only problem. Like, it's good to kind of have a battle of words, especially with a guy like Paul Heyman that is especially good on the mic. But I was just kind of thinking the whole time, I mean, it's not going to come to, it's not like he's going to curb stop Paul Heyman at some point or anything. So we'll see. I mean, maybe at some point he can exact his revenge. But that's just to the point of the evening where we did get to the Battle Royal to determine CM Punk's opponent at Saturday night's main event. Good roster there on the Raw. So they had plenty out there, interesting competitors. Of course, as in any battle royal, there's about 3 or 4 guys that are legitimately could win it, and then there's the fun to see who does. And so in this match was Rusev, Ivar, Grayson Waller, Kofi Kingston, Dom Mysterio, Finn Balor, JD McDonough, Akira Tozawa, Otis, El Grande Americano, Penta, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, LA Knight, AJ Styles, Dragon Lee, and Sheamus. CM Punk went over and joined Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett for commentary in this match. He was entertaining enough while doing it. So a couple interesting things. Again, there's a lot of different eliminations. I'm not going to go through, just the ones that I did think were good and added to the storyline. So the Judgment Day eliminated Dragon Lee. A little bit of revenge for the tag title loss earlier. So maybe at that point, I thought maybe they're going to go back after those titles. Mysterio was able to dump Rusev and Penta off the apron for 2 eliminations there. So kind of the IC champion, showing the number 1 contenders that he still is a guy to look out for, although he's obviously not going to overpower Rusev much. I do think that this was one part that I wanted to see out of the gate immediately in this match was Rusev kind of going after Mysterio. They didn't really do that. In fact, if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't even know the two were feuding. And this, you remember in storyline, this is a guy that earlier that night got kicked in the nether regions, got low blowed for his chance at the title. And it's happened twice. So Rusev should be, they do all these battles where the guys have to come out and they have to be separated, and it takes 10 security guards and you still can't keep them apart. That's the level of frustration Rusev, who is just a giant angry guy that walks around anyway, should have at Dominic, and they just didn't really address that. So I thought that was a little bit weird. But other than that, I really did enjoy this battle royal. We did have the Celtic Warrior Sheamus taking out Balor and McDonough. They were not happy with that, so they pulled him to the floor. On the other side of the ring, Styles tossed Mysterio to the floor, but Dirty Dom's elimination was not seen by the refs because they were still kind of looking at what Balor and McDonough were doing with the Celtic Warriors. So Dirty Dom is able to stay in, continue kind of his story of being a little bit of a cheater there. But it was interesting because Balor and McDonough, again, in this match, saved Dirty Dom's backside, if you will, or saved him from elimination. And he did not do the same when they were getting eliminated. So, again, more reason for frustration and turmoil within the Judgment Day. But the real story in this, Jimmy Uso, is kind of a similar story in that, is that Jimmy Uso repeatedly saved his brother, Jay, from elimination. But when the opposite opportunity arose for Jay to save Jimmy, instead he tossed Jimmy. Jimmy and LA Knight were scrambling by the ropes. Jay tossed them out. And then we saw Mysterio, again, who I said was eliminated, but the rest didn't see it earlier, kind of looking like he was going to go in there and try to take Jay out. Jay, though, saw him coming and threw him over the ropes. And so Jay Uso wins the Battle Royal. He seems to be pretty good at these type of events as of late. But we'll go on to take on CM Punk for the world title at Saturday Night Main Event. Interesting part about this, again, is the story of Jimmy and Jay kind of breaking up. They've done it before. They're doing it again. But the show kind of went off with a visual of Jimmy watching from the floor as Jay and CM Punk square off and stare each other down. So Jimmy certainly expected to kind of get involved in that match that they have as well. So we'll see. A lot of drama going around on WWE Raw. And again, I was very entertained by a lot of this that happened. Unfortunately, we are up for a break. When we come back, I will review SmackDown from this previous week and talk about, and we'll wrap up the show kind of talking about what we expect to see from the upcoming premium live events. That's coming up next year on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket.
After a long, hot summer, are you ready for fall? What about your home? Is your heating system ready for cooler temperatures ahead? Call Bryant for your fall heating check. No matter what brand of equipment you own, Bryant's trained technicians will thoroughly clean and inspect your furnace or heat pump to make sure you stay warm, safe, and comfortable. Call today to schedule your home heating check. 467-1111. Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing. 467-1111. Bryant, whatever it takes.
Tired of Sports dealership. Get geared up for savings like you've never seen before during Elway Days. Their biggest sale of the year runs October 14th through the 18th, when every red tag machine is priced at invoice plus $300. That's it. No freight, no setup, no extra fees. Don't miss out on these epic savings. Elway Power Sports of Lincoln has you covered all under one roof with a large selection of side-by-sides, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft at their 27th and I-80 location.
Imagine hitting rewind on your life 10, even 20 years. With testosterone therapy from Limitless Male, you can turn back the aging clock and get your edge, energy, and confidence back. If you've lost your drive, sleep deprived, muscle loss, belly fat, irritable, you're not the guy you once were. Get your T levels checked at Limitless Male. More and more men are realizing hormone replacement can turn back the clock. Schedule your free consult at limitlessmale.com.
Hi, this is Pastor Tom. Did you know there's a place kids can seek out help when they're away from home and something goes wrong? They find themselves in a difficult spot or even a dangerous situation. Maybe another child is bullying them or a stranger is following them. Perhaps on a date and things just go bad. In Lincoln, here's where they can find help. It's called Safe Place. Safe Place is a national program for children taking place in thousands of cities across the United States. The People City Mission is sponsoring this program in our community and has set up a number of businesses, fire stations, schools, and nonprofits around the city to become safe locations where kids can seek out help. They just need to look for the big yellow sign that says Safe Place on it. Then go inside and ask for help. We will be quickly connected to them and ensure they make it back home or to whatever resources are needed. If you'd like to find out more about Safe Place and ways in which you can get involved, just go to pcmlincoln.org. Remember, when we all do a little, we change a lot.
Serve Nebraska believes that volunteers are part of what makes Nebraska great. Each year, the Step Forward Awards honors volunteers from across the state who serve their communities in outstanding ways. We hope you'll join us this year at the Step Forward Awards luncheon on October 27th in Omaha. Help us thank volunteers with a celebration to remember. To register, visit serve.nebraska.gov and click Register Now. We hope to see you there. Paid for by Serve Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
You never think cancer will happen to you. I smoked for over 40 years. My doctor recommended that I get annual lung cancer screening. They were able to catch my cancer at stage 1. It's never too late to quit. Even if you're still smoking, you need to ask your doctor about annual lung cancer screening. Just 30 minutes a year could save your life.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Husker fans know when you work together, great things happen. At Cornhusker Bank, they're more than your financial partner. With 5 locations in Lincoln and 1 in Omaha, they're your neighbors, your teammates, and your biggest fans. Whether you're saving for your first home, planning your future, or growing your business, they're right here in Nebraska to help you move forward together. Visit cornhusker.bank to learn more. Cornhusker Bank, member FDIC. Doing life together.
Deciding on a college with your high school senior can be a little overwhelming for parents. But applying for money to pay for it is simple. FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, is now easier than ever with fewer questions and faster fill-out times. If you have a high school senior, now is the time to apply for thousands of dollars for classes, books, and housing. Get started, Nebraska, at dothefafsa.org. Sponsored by Education Quest Foundation. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bockoven on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Happy to be back with you here on a Sunday night talking some pro wrestling. We just talked about WWE Raw and what they did this past week on that great program. Now let's get to Friday Night SmackDown, where Cody Rhodes opened up the show. Of course, wouldn't take long for Drew McIntyre to interrupt Cody. Kind of fun how they're doing this feud here. Drew calls out the fans for cheering Cody despite his heelish tactics over the last couple of weeks. Cody has, in fact, attacked Drew McIntyre with the belt and done some things that usually you would see heels do. But Cody's the good guy. So Drew McIntyre says, I forget exactly the words that he was saying, some sort of propaganda that Cody has going in the crowd enjoys it. Certainly fits into McIntyre's character, which is always kind of being cheated out of things and not quite given the opportunity he feels that he deserves. So a fun angle for them to kind of put on this Cody Drew McIntyre feud, which really needed it. I mean, we talked about it before. I mean, this is the kind of the second go around in the last couple months to where these two are going to be battling for the championship belt. And again, would be surprised if Drew McIntyre wins. Now, all that being said, I mean, they did just have Cody lose to Seth Rollins. That's a different thing than dropping the belt. And now that Seth is out, especially, they might be turning more toward, hey, we need to get something going for Cody. So all this time, again, it does feel like Drew McIntyre is kind of the feud for now, but not likely going to have an opportunity to win this thing against Cody. He stood tall, by the way, this past SmackDown, so usually that doesn't help either. The guy standing tall the last couple of weeks before the actual fight doesn't usually win, so we'll see how that goes. I will say I give Drew McIntyre a little bit of a chance against Cody, but this does seem to be a filler feud, if you will, and so therefore you got to find a way to make it entertaining, and I think they've done that again with how they were writing this thing. Another part I kind of liked about this promo from McIntyre said he needs to finish his story, which of course is borrowing from Cody. So that I think it's been a lot of fun. He also denied being the one to attack Jacob Fatu last week, and in fact implied that it might have been Jimmy Uso. And I think this is great. And it's almost, it's funny because they've done so many of these over the years, you know, lay a guy out in the back and then try to figure out who attacked him. I think this one could end up being Drew McIntyre. You know, usually they kind of want you to kind of look all over the roster. Certainly the MFTs are there. He mentions, you know, Jimmy and Jay, who've got their kind of own disagreements going on. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys who it could be. But I would not be surprised if they do go back around and find out that it is Drew McIntyre. Now, that might not be the case. Remember, McIntyre and Jacob Fatu were going to fight for the right to take on Cody Rhodes, but instead, Drew McIntyre just kind of won by default because Jacob Fatu was not able to fight. In any case, after Drew implied that it might have been Jimmy attacks Drew from out of nowhere. They had to break this up. And then Solo Sikoa and the MFTs come to the ring for the first match. Kind of interesting timing. I mean, I was excited for them to come out and be involved in this, but this was the first match. So they definitely could be the ones that attacked Jacob Fatu as well. The MFTs then from there took on Rey Fenix and Shinsuke Nakamura. Kind of a fresh tag team from those guys. Shinsuke Nakamura, of course, returning in recent weeks. This made for a good, you know, high stakes match because somebody was going to have to lose. And they've been pushing the MFTs, and Shinsuke Nakamura and Rey Fenix, of course, were trying to develop their own team here. Solo Sikoa, as usual, going to be out there to distract the rest. That worked. While Talatanga chokeslammed Phoenix on their apron. That allowed Tama Tonga to hit a running elbow for the win. It was Tama Tonga and JC Mateo who were in this match on behalf of the MFTs. They get the win, and I think they look great. I've said this before about Solo Sikoa and his group, one time known as the Bloodline, right? Now kind of transitioning to the MFTs, is that they weren't all that fearsome. They weren't all that, they didn't seem to be all that overpowering, right? They just didn't have the star power of the old Bloodline. And so while they kind of did their promos and their vignettes and they tried to get you there, for me it just wasn't working. It's funny how much face paint can do for you, you know, just a new look. And I think that has helped these guys. Again, if you followed this show, you know I love Tama Tonga. Yeah. And he's still kind of got that going for him. Even through the face paint, he looks fearsome in it. But I thought he was okay on his own. Obviously, Talatanga probably okay on their own. But Solo Sikoa in his group specifically, I mean, there's a few guys in there. I'll just name them, Tonga Loa and JC Mateo, who I just didn't think had much to them, right? I mean, I'm not saying anything as far as in-ring ability or what they've done at other companies. They've obviously earned their right to get here. But as far as their WWE characters, it's just kind of like, okay, still kind of waiting for them to kind of find something. Tonga Loa at one time had an eye patch that, you know, that was there for about 2 weeks. That didn't stick around. JC Mateo, you know, didn't have a whole lot to him. So this, and I say all that to say this face paint kind of turns that around. JC Mateo now looks a little bit more fearsome. Tonga Loa, you know, they all just kind of look part of the group. So I think that's really working for the MFTs, and it's something that they, you know, have worked with well over the past in their except, you know, for a few of these MFTs in the past outside of the company. So to go back to something that had worked before, I think is a good idea. They feel fresh, they feel new, and they feel like a threat now. They've been booked well. On the opposite end, I will say this for Rey Fenix, who ended up taking the pin. A tough loss for his character. You know, at one time when he debuted, certainly, you know, the brother of Penta, they were on WrestleMania. They both kind of were were in some storylines here. If you remember, he even fought a WrestleMania match. Seems lost, right? As far as a character, they need to find something for him. So we'll see what they do next with them. But again, when you put a match of can't lose versus can't lose, right? Because they just recently had been debuting, or at least two guys that needed two sides, I should say, that needed a win. Yeah, someone's going to lose it, and Ray Phoenix, I think, lost more of it than anything as far as his momentum goes. I'm interested to see too what they're going to do with Shinsuke Nakamura right now. Of course, a face that doesn't have to last long. He's always entertaining as well, but they've just kind of failed to really spark up the energy or the excitement that he had once had as a world champion. So we'll see if they can kind of figure out a way to get back to that. Speaking of world champions, we had a non-title match with Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany, of course, coming off her first L of the year, having lost at Crown Jewel. So I was interested to see, does she still have the same star power? Is it still the same excitement? And I didn't know if I felt it quite as much in this match against Kiana James. Kiana, for what she's given, did pretty well in this match, proved that she can wrestle. But this was never a match that she was made to win, right? Tiffany was going to win this. She did ultimately win with a swanton, followed by the prettiest moonsault ever. I wanted a different angle of that swanton, by the way, because it looked like, I mean, I couldn't tell how much of it she got. So it looked like we've seen her take some bad landings over the last couple of months. That looked like another one that potentially was there. Did not end up being the case. It just looked pretty rough on screen. But then she went the prettiest moonsault ever. That always looks pretty. And she got the win. No surprise, Julia, who was at ringside, attacked the champion. Then the surprise did come. Jade Cargill came out to make the save. This wasn't enough of a surprise of it on its own, because, of course, Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton have not gotten along. They fought for the title before. And so I thought it was interesting, as they were kind of celebrating, fighting off Julia, Cargill ended up attacking Stratton, turning heel for the first time in her WWE run. Then it took several security guards to stop them from, well, specifically Jade Cargill, from doing more damage to Tiffany Stratton. I like it. I like the look of Jade Cargill. I think they could have made, the only problem I had with it again was I was still trying to figure out why they were friends and how they were friends, or why Tiffany Stratton was just going to celebrate there and completely trust Jade Cargill, who had been her enemy for the longest time. So maybe I missed something. Maybe they hugged or something at Jade Cargill's last appearance. I'm not really sure. But that was the only thing I was kind of questioning throughout it is why is there a friendship to begin with? So to turn heel, you kind of have to usually establish that she's a good guy. And not that she had been a heel before, but she was kind of just a fighter, right? She didn't necessarily lean one way or the other. This new look, and maybe if you saw it initially, definitely had the look of a heel, the spike necklace, the all dark clothing, all that. So maybe you could kind of see that coming as well. Again, all that being said, that does not necessarily make it the wrong decision. It just quickly turns Jade Cargill to a heel and sets her sights on Tiffany Stratton. And again, a way to freshen up that matchup, because it's a great matchup. They've just already done it. Now Jade Cargill kind of with a new character. And then the next part about that is I'm interested if they're ready to give the belt to Jade. We had talked about how this is Tiffany Stratton's year. Of course, one loss does not make it bad. But again, I think she just lost a little bit of the magic, because part of her character had become that she had not lost in the year, and then she loses to La Primera at Crown Jewel. And so again, I think that takes a little bit away. Maybe they're planning to make this move to Jade Cargill here. So we'll see. But again, like I said, it's a great way to freshen up a matchup that wouldn't necessarily be fresh otherwise. I talked about how they did that with Cody and Drew McIntyre, doing it here as well. And I'm looking forward to this new Cargill taking on Tiffany Stratton. And again, what does it do for Tiffany Stratton? Takes away the focus from, okay, she's had a loss this year, to now the threat of Jade Cargill in an exciting feud. So I think that it checked off all the boxes there. Maybe could have done a week or 2 weeks of, hey, Jade Cargill is friends with Tiffany Stratton, and it would have made the turn, because it's hard to even call it a turn, because I halfway expected it. I just didn't know if I expected it on that night. But either way, and then going into the future, one way this could go as well is a triple threat, or at least Julia certainly has seemed to have targeted Tiffany Stratton as well. Now she's got her own championship perhaps to defend. So I'm interested to see if Julia will be involved in this. Of course, she shouldn't be happy with Jade Cargill either, or if they kind of move off the Kiana James, Julia kind of angle from this side and get them going in their own title defenses. We'll have to wait and see. A few more things to talk about here about SmackDown before we wrap up. And unfortunately, we are up against the break. We'll take another one real quick and be right back with more talk to close out the show of Friday Night SmackDown and the Saturday night main event that's coming up here for WWE as well.
Nebraska farmers, harvest is here and every gallon counts. That's why Sapp Brothers Petroleum launched the Go Big Red Fuel Giveaway. When you contract your fuel with Sapp Brothers, enter to win $1,000 in fuel credits. As Husker Country knows, the only thing stronger than the roar at Memorial Stadium is the drive of a farmer putting food on the table. Fuel your farm with Sapp Brothers Petroleum and enter to win $1,000 in fuel credits. Visit sapbros.net today. Sapp Brothers Petroleum, fueling the heartland. Go Big Red.
If the power is out, traffic lights might be too. If you come across a dark intersection, treat it like a four-way stop. See more tips at les.com/safety.
This is former Husker and NFL linebacker Jay Foreman. For years, I've suffered from degenerative problems in both of my ankles, but thanks to a thorough and thought-out plan provided by Advanced Medical Imaging, I was able to get my life back with the least amount of pain as possible. While working through multiple options, the team of physicians at Advanced Medical Imaging were there to answer any questions I had. If you're experiencing any pain at all and want to get your life back, go to amimaging.com or give them a call at 402-484-6677. Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard.
This is Bill Mitchner, Executive Director of Lincoln Lighthouse. Did you know Lighthouse provides multiple programs for students such as one-on-one tutoring and mentoring, as well as pro-social skill exercises, while providing them a nourishing meal and a safe space during all months of the year, even during school breaks? Learn more or contribute to Lighthouse at lincolnlighthouse.org today.
This fall, Baumgars has everything you need to get your farm ready for the season. Stock up on livestock feed, deer corn, and pine shavings to keep your animals fed and your farm running smoothly. Need tools for your fall projects? Grab DeWalt power tools and grass seed to keep your fields in top shape before winter. From your barn to your backyard, Baumgars has you covered. Get ready for the season with everything you need to finish those fall fix-ups. Baumgars, field, farm, and fall fix-ups.
Are you looking to upgrade your equipment and keep cash in your pocket? Through October at Landmark Implement, get up to a 24-month waiver on select John Deere tractors and combines, or lock in a 2.9% fixed rate for 36 months, followed by a qualified standard rate for another 36 months. Whether you're thinking of this year's harvest or planning ahead, we've got a solution that works for your bottom line. Visit your local Landmark Implement for more details, or check us out at landmarkimp.com and experience the Landmark difference.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bockoven, on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Back with you here on a Sunday night to wrap up Nuclear Heat. Thanks for joining me. As always, you can join in on the show if you want to. 402-464-5685. You can text in and give me some of your thoughts as WWE has been hot. I've said it. If you've walked away from wrestling, now would be a good time to come back. Lots of character development, lots of fresh matchups, and I think some pretty exciting stuff booked ahead and pretty unpredictable stuff at this point. And again, wrestling can be good if predictable, if done right. So there's that too. There's some predictable stuff going on as well. Let's jump back into SmackDown. One of my favorite parts is Chelsea Green trying to recruit somebody into her secret service. This week, Julia and Kiana James denied it, did not want to be a part of it, but that will be fun. Chelsea Green, always a pleasure to see her on the screen. Hilarious character. Another character that I thought was interesting development here in the backstage is Carmelo Hayes. Apparently a face turn. We'll take on Kit Wilson this upcoming Friday, but he did say basically that now that him and Miz have gone at each other, an eye for an eye, they should be done. And Carmelo Hayes was interestingly enough, again, sounding like a noble character. And so since he's been on the main roster, I think he's been, I think at first he was a little bit kind of in between face and heel, but for the most part has been heel. Again, I don't know if it's ever connected the best. He's certainly been on TV a lot. So it's been good enough for his career. It just feels like kind of repetitive, right? So this face turn might freshen him up a little bit. I'm not completely convinced, don't get me wrong, that this is going to be for the long term, but they do need a face in the Carmelo Hayes Miz feud, and so they're kind of setting it up to be that way. Miz, of course, always better as a heel than a face, though he can do both, but a fantastic heel is one of the best heels in the company. So I think that is a good way to go if that is indeed what they turn to. If it really is Carmelo Hayes against Kit Wilson for the next several weeks, no offense to Kit Wilson, but that might be the popcorn match. I'll go ahead and say it again. The popcorn match is when you get up and get your popcorn if you're at the live event. Bathroom match, maybe if you're at home where you can go ahead and take a bathroom break. Not to be mean again, but they're just certain matches that don't catch your interest as much. I'm more interested to see if the Miz certainly shows up. Kit Wilson's kind of been a gnat in the background of SmackDown recently. I think just waiting maybe on the healthy return of his partner. So we'll kind of see what happens there. I don't think at this stage in his career a big singles run is ahead of him, but I could be wrong. We'll see. Maybe his character work has something going for him. Of course, the United States Open Challenge this time, no longer Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn passed it off to the Mad Dragon himself, Ilya Dragunov. And so we'd have our first Open Challenge from Ilya Dragunov, and it was answered by Aleister Black. This a fascinating matchup, a first matchup between the two, which I was a little bit surprised by. But it was hard to predict who was going to win this one. Now, obviously, you would think Ilya, they just gave him the championship win over Sammy, so you would expect him to win this. But at the same time, Aleister Black just coming off a big feud, kind of new character work. Zelina Vega accompanying him to the ring for the first time. So they're kind of they're a thing now. Obviously, a real life partnership between the two. Now partnerships on screen as well. But again, it's one of those matchups where it's like, man, neither of these can really afford a loss given what they've been doing. All that build up to lead to this. Now, what ultimately happened is maybe what you would expect. Vega was caught tripping. Dragunov was ejected from ringside, so Aleister Black didn't have his help anymore, and that kind of opened up the door for one of his old nemesis, his most recent nemesis, Damian Priest, to come out. He came out, cost him the match. Ultimately distracted him, right? And Dragunov used that to hit the Torpedo Moscow for the win. Priest then would attack Black after the match. Vega would come out, save her husband as they escaped through the crowd. So we'll still see more Damian Priest supporting a nice big black eye, if you will, or whatever. I mean, he threw fire at him. I don't know how that leads to a black eye, but whatever way you would describe it. That feud, I think, has been. I think with the Fireball is a little bit. I don't want to call it fresh, but renewed a little bit more. I'm interested to see the next chapter in it, which is something I can't say about the entirety of the feud to this point, just to be completely honest. They're two characters that I like. They're two dark characters, but they just, I don't know, something about it wasn't connecting. Now they bring in Zelina Vega. Aleister Black's a little bit more intriguing, and so I think this is going to work out here. Again, who's going to win it ultimately will be intriguing. Damian Priest feels like he needs to win this feud. If nothing else, because if he loses it, just the fall from grace from where he was. Now that's a story you can tell on its own, but just feels like he needs to ultimately come out of this thing on top. So we'll see what the next iteration of that is. This week's main event was from the first match. From the opening segment. Was set up as a no DQ match between Jimmy Uso and Drew McIntyre. Jimmy Uso specifically said, I don't want a match, I want to fight. And so that's what he got, and that's what this was. They used the opportunity to use plenty of weapons throughout the match. It was a hard-fought match, a lot of good spots. Ultimately, Uso and Drew McIntyre put on a good show, but Big Jim had some momentum McIntyre threw a chair into his face. And it was connected pretty well. Then hit him for the Claymore for the pin and the win. I'm going off my memory because I didn't have it written down, but I believe Cody Rhodes came out there and he laid him out as well. So again, McIntyre kind of standing tall for this thing. What's next for everybody? Again, Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes will face each other at Saturday night's main event. CM Punk and Jey Uso will face each other at Saturday night's main event. And Jimmy Uso has something to say about all of it, right? So, I mean, it is interesting with all this character work that they've done with all those four guys that Jimmy Uso might be amongst the most interesting of any of them just because he's kind of the wild card in it all. And that's something I think that they really needed to do with Jimmy. I mean, I've said it for the longest time. Jay, if you remember when this whole bloodline thing started, Jimmy was just out injured. And so they went on they decided to have Roman Reigns go against Jey Uso, and it began the story that was just a lot more interesting and really began a great character for Jay. And Jimmy kind of returned, was part of the bloodline, has had a great run himself, obviously. But as far as the singles character, maybe has a little bit left to work with outside of any bloodline feud, right? If he's just kind of generic good guy in a lot of these other feuds. And so now I think they've got something kind of interesting. Is he going to turn on Jay? He still want blood on Drew McIntyre. We'll have to wait and see. But obviously, too, the other part of it is Jay is leaning in toward more of a heelish character, but he's still widely over with the crowd. So if Jimmy did turn, maybe that would be the way to go. But they've done that before. So I think in this case, I think you would go with Jay turning on Jimmy. But we'll have to wait and see what's left out for that. So again, if you're looking for the next premium live events or what they're building toward, it is Saturday night main event is what they're looking forward to, which will be this next Saturday. So next time we do this Nuclear Heat, we'll be able to review Raw, SmackDown, and Saturday night's main event, and then from there the focus will be on Survivor Series moving forward. So we got a lot of interesting stuff. Again, not much of a card yet for the Saturday night of main event that's 6 days away. So we're going to see a lot of that play out this week, and then we'll get the payoff on Saturday, and we'll talk about it here on Sunday, next Sunday, every Sunday on Nuclear Heat from 9 to 10 on 93.7 The Ticket. I'm Jake Bockoven. Thanks for joining me this evening. We'll get back to regular 93.7 The Ticket local programming bright in the morning with Early Break coming off a Nebraska win over the weekend and some more interesting stuff going on in the coaches carousel. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned to Nuclear Heat next week at 9 o'clock for some more pro wrestling on 93.7 The Ticket.